Welcome back to The Trust Show. Thank you for joining me for episode 194. In the last episode, I began taking you through chapter 18 and walk you through the trust habits process, which is a structured, practical way to build trust intentionally through better daily behaviors between you and your clients. We covered the first 4 steps. Number 1, focus on the segment. Target the customer group with the highest trust premium. Number 2, identify limiting behaviors. Uncover what you're doing that might be getting in the way of your customers trusting you. Number 3, define new habits that will replace the old behaviors with intentional, trust-building actions. And number 4, make it SMART, S-M-A-R-T. Make your new habit specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So today, we'll be wrapping up the trust habits process with the final 3 steps. Number 5, make it stick. Tools and techniques that help you follow through and build consistency that is so important for forming new habits. Number 6, accountability partner. Why having someone to hold you accountable dramatically increases your odds of success. And number 7, repeat until the habit is formed. Because building trust isn't a one-time change, it's a sustained effort. These last 3 steps bring the process a full cycle, turning insight into lasting behavior and behavior into credibility and trust. This episode also marks the end of the core content of the Trust Premium book. There are 2 chapters left in the book, the epilogue and acknowledgments, and I'll read both in the next episode. So let's dive in and finish strong right after this. Welcome to The Trust Show. I'm Yoram Solomon, your host, the author of the Book of Trust, and facilitator of the Trust Habits Workshop. My mission is simple. I want to help you form habits that build your trustworthiness, because the answer to this question will have the biggest impact on your personal and professional success or failure. Can I trust you? Step 5. Make it stick. Building a habit takes repetition until it becomes second nature and you no longer have to think about it. In a provider-customer relationship, forming trust-building habits requires consistent effort and strategies that make it easier to stick to your new behavior. Below are 7 ways to make your trust-building habit with a customer stick. Number 1, fill the void. Use the same trigger. Don't leave gaps when breaking a bad habit. When you stop an old trust-demanding behavior, replace it with a new trust-building habit triggered by the same situation. For example, if your bad habit was rushing through client meetings without personal engagement, replace that habit with a good one, taking a few minutes at the start of every meeting to check in personally and set expectations. Use the same trigger, the start of the meeting, to fill it with a new positive habit. Replacing bad habits ensures the underlying need or situation is addressed, reducing the risk of falling back into the old behavior. Number 2. Minimize friction. Reduce friction in the new habit. Make it easier to practice the habit you committed to. For instance, if your new habit is to follow up with a client promptly, set up automated reminders or email templates to make the process quicker. Increase friction for the old habit. Make it harder to revert to old negative behaviors. For example, if you tend to send generic messages, delete those old templates or block access to tools that make cutting corners easy. Friction is key. Lower it for the good habit and increase it for the bad one. Number 3, make it mindless. Turn trust building into a routine. The goal is to make the habit so consistent that it doesn't require active thought. For instance, always start your calls by sharing one actionable insight with the customer. Do it the same way every time. Repetition without variation leads to automaticity. Avoid complicating or changing the process too often. Boring habits are the ones that stick. Number 4, habit conditioning, also known as habit stacking. Tie the new habit to an existing one. Attach the trust-building habit to something you already do regularly. For example, if you always check your email first thing in the morning, make it a habit to write one personalized message to a client before responding to other emails. In other words, condition the old established habit in performing the new one. You don't perform the old habit until you perform the new one. James Clear's habit stacking method from the book Atomic Habits shows that pairing a new habit with an established one significantly increases the likelihood of forming the habit. Number 5, use technical support. Leverage technology to make trust-building habits easier to follow. Some examples include calendar applications, schedule recurring check-ins with clients to build consistency. Reminders, use reminders on your phone or smartwatch to prompt key trust-building behaviors, such as sending an update to a client. CRM systems, use customer relationship management tools to track and log interactions and track follow-ups. Use reminders built into the system. Many CRM systems or even email software allows you to set up a reminder that you didn't respond to an email within a certain time. This could be a tremendous help if, for example, the habit you're trying to form is that you will answer a customer email within 24 hours. Technology can also help you prevent old habits. For example, block access to shortcuts that enable generic communication or set alerts to ensure timely responses. Number 6, logging. Keep a log of your progress. Logging helps track how you consistently practicing the habit and provides motivation to improve. For example, record when you meet with a client and the value you provided. Grade your effort weekly. For example, A, B, C, or F, based on criteria like timeliness, personalization, and quality of interaction. Benefits of logging: accountability, keeps you honest about whether you're sticking to the habit. Motivation, sees progress or lack thereof, pushes you to improve. Visibility, share your progress with an accountability partner. See step 6, increasing external motivation. But even if you don't share your progress with your accountability partner, the fact that it's staring you in the face is a constant, visible reminder. Number 7, make it time-bound and gradual. Set achievable and time-specific goals. For example, I will schedule a 10-minute follow-up call with whoever the client name is every Monday at 10 a.m. for the next 4 weeks. Gradual improvements are key. Don't go from zero communication to overwhelming the customer with excessive content. It's counterproductive. Instead, slowly build up the new habit over time. Extrinsic motivation. Developing a new habit to improve trustworthiness can be challenging when building trust with a customer, especially in the early stages. Consistently practicing a new behavior requires effort, and that effort may initially outweigh your motivation to stick with it. This is where extrinsic motivation can play a crucial role in keeping you on track until the habit becomes automatic. What is extrinsic motivation? Motivation, in simple terms, is what drives us to take action. When your motivation to adopt a new habit or break a bad one is lower than the effort required, you're unlikely to follow through. In this context, intrinsic motivation comes from within. It is directly tied to the eventual benefits of being more trusted by your customer, such as gaining loyalty, earning a trust premium, or fostering a long-term relationship. However, intrinsic motivators often have delayed gratification. Customers won't immediately reward you with trust after just one good action, and building trust takes time. Early in the process, the effort may feel daunting and the benefits may seem too far out. That's where extrinsic motivators come in. Extrinsic motivation comes from external factors unrelated to the natural outcome of your new habit. It is an artificial but effective tool to get you through the initial stages of habit formation, helping you stay consistent until the habit sticks and becomes second nature. The link between the extrinsic motivation and the desired action is created by you and enforced by you. When in 2012, I wanted to lose 32 pounds in 6 months, the natural outcome was that I would feel better, look better, and live longer. The effort or the new habits I needed to adopt were restricted my food intake and exercising more. The effort was just too much for that delayed gratification from weight loss. So I added an extrinsic motivation. You see, one of my hobbies is to build and fly radio-controlled model airplanes. I decided that I could build or fly them only on days when my net calorie intake was below the limit. That motivation, building and flying, has nothing to do with the outcome of being under the calorie limit. I made an artificial connection between them, but the motivation I got was strong and immediate. It was enough to get me to stay under the calorie limit. I only violated that limit 7 times in 6 months. I wrote this story in the book Worst Diet Ever, and the system I developed there, which I'm sharing here, became the foundation for my trust-building process, Trust Habits. How extrinsic motivation helps. In a provider-customer relationship, extrinsic motivators should do one or more of the following. Motivate you to practice the new trust-building habit, for example, following up promptly after every meeting. Make it harder not to practice the habit, for example, scheduling accountability reminders to follow through. Motivate you to stop the bad behavior, for example, reducing overpromising and under-delivering, or make it harder to continue the bad habit. For example, implementing processes that make errors or missteps less likely. Carrots or sticks? Is it better to use a reward, carrot, or a consequence, stick? Research suggests that negative motivators, sticks, are more effective because bad experiences tend to impact us more strongly than good ones. For instance, if your goal is to follow up with a customer within 24 hours, a carrot might be treating yourself to something small when you achieve that goal. A stick might involve assigning a small penalty, for example, not being able to build or fly my radio-controlled airplanes on a day I didn't meet the criteria. Here is how carrots and sticks connect to your good or bad habit goals. If the focus is start a good habit, a carrot, a reward, would be to treat yourself to something you enjoy when you exercise the good habit. A stick, a consequence, would be to deny yourself of something you enjoy when you don't exercise the good habit. If the focus is stop a bad behavior, a carrot or reward would be to treat yourself for something you enjoy when you don't perform the bad habit. And the stick or consequence will be to deny yourself of something you enjoy when you continue to perform the bad habit. Using extrinsic motivation until habits form. Using extrinsic motivators might feel artificial or disconnected from the relationship with the customer. You may ask yourself, am I doing it for the right reasons? However, they're only temporary tools to help you get through the early stages of building a new habit. Once the habit becomes automatic, you'll no longer need them. Think of extrinsic motivators like the starter in your car. It starts the behavior until the habit catches on and sustains itself through intrinsic motivation, the fuel, such as the satisfaction of earning the customer's trust and loyalty. Over time, the effort required for the habit decreases, and the benefits of being trusted by the customer naturally outweigh any remaining effort. When that happens, the intrinsic motivator of trust becomes enough to sustain the habit, and you can let go of the extrinsic motivator entirely. Combining techniques. By combining these make-it-stick techniques, you'll make it easier to build and sustain trust-building habits that strengthen your relationship with customers. Step 6. Accountability partner. The journey to build trust with your customers, whether prospective or current, requires effort, consistency, and accountability. Without regular reflection and external checks, it's easy to lose momentum. This is where the concept of an accountability partner becomes invaluable. The American Society for Training and Development, ASTD, had shown that the likelihood of achieving your goal increases significantly when you bring in accountability. While this concept is widely applied in personal and corporate contexts, it is just as critical in the provider-customer relationship. Let's translate the insight from the ASTD study into how they apply to building trust with a customer. 10%. Your probability of success is 10% if you only know that building trust with a specific customer is your goal. 25%. It rises to 25% if you consciously decide to pursue trust building with that customer. 40%. The likelihood jumps to 40% if you set a timeline and clear milestones for improving trust in their relationship. 50%. Your probability climbs to 50% if you have a well-thought-out action plan to build trust, which we created in the earlier steps. But 50% is still the same probability as a coin toss, and it's the highest probability you can achieve on your own. If you truly want to succeed, you need accountability. Why accountability matters? When you commit to an accountability partner, your chances of success rise to 65%. And if you schedule regular check-ins, that probability skyrockets to 95%. Why? Because we are motivated by external factors like ego, shame, and the natural discomfort of letting someone else down. Knowing you must report your progress to someone else forces you to follow through. However, this accountability partner must not be your customer. Your accountability partner's role is to keep you focused on your trust-building goals and to hold you accountable for the specific actions and milestones you set in earlier steps. By design, they are there to help you succeed, not to judge or critique your relationship with the customer directly. How to choose the right accountability partner? When selecting an accountability partner, follow these do's and don'ts. Trust them to hold you accountable. Your accountability partner must be reliable, honest, and consistent. They must have the courage to call you out if you fail to meet your commitments. Select someone independent of the customer relationship. Choose someone not directly involved with the customer you're focusing on. This keeps their perspective objective and unbiased. Ensure they have access to your progress. They must be able to see the metrics or log you're using to track your new trust-building habit. Transparency is critical. Set clear expectations. Your accountability partner must understand exactly what you're working on, how they'll track your progress, and what their role entails. Avoid reciprocal relationships. Don't ask someone to be your accountability partner if you are theirs. This often leads to leniency. If you cut me some slack, I'll cut you some slack. Don't pick someone intimidated by you. Avoid choosing someone who might be hesitant to hold you accountable because of your professional authority or personal relationship. 4 keys to accountability success. To maximize your chances of success, your accountability partner should meet these criteria. Effort-based metrics. Track your actions, not just outcomes. For example, if your goal is to meet a customer face-to-face more often, measure the number of meetings you scheduled and held each week. Direct access to logs. Your accountability partner must have unfiltered access to your progress metrics through shared documents, apps, weekly emails, or other means. This keeps you honest. Regular check-ins. Schedule weekly or bi-weekly check-ins to discuss your progress. Frequent updates help keep you on track and prevent long periods of inaction. Build-in consequences. Establish extrinsic motivators, positive or negative, for meeting or missing milestones. Your accountability partner must know and enforce these consequences. How to work with an accountability partner. The accountability process should be structured to ensure consistency and minimal ambiguity. Here is an example of a simple system. Send a summary of your progress to your accountability partner at the same time every week. For example, every Monday at 9 a.m. If your accountability partner doesn't hear from you by the agreed time, they should reach out to you for an update. Share detailed logs that show your actions, metrics, and grades for the week. For example, week of October 9, actions taken, held 3 face-to-face meetings with customer. Metric met? Yes, grade A. Week of October 16, sent follow-up emails but no meetings. Metric met? Partial. Grade C. Follow up with extrinsic consequences. For example, allowing or disallowing certain privileges, such as taking a break or pursuing a hobby. Make an accountability contract. To formalize the process, create an accountability contract. This written agreement lays out the following: the habit or goal you're working on, the frequency of check-ins, the consequences for success or failure. Here is an example contract. Accountability contract. Fill in your name. Commits to holding face-to-face meetings with, fill in the customer's name, at least twice per week. Progress will be shared with, fill in the accountability partner's name, via email every Monday by 8 a.m. If the weekly goal is met, fill in your accountability partner's name, will, and here decide, authorize reward or prevent consequence. If the goal is not met, fill in the specific consequence, will be enforced. Signed by your name and accountability partner's name on the date you sign it. Specific example. Accountability contract. Yoram commits to holding face-to-face meetings with John at least twice per week. Progress will be shared with Emily via email every Monday by 8 a.m. If the weekly goal is met, Emily will allow Yoram to work on his model planes next week. If the goal is not met, she will not. Signed on January 8, 2025 by Yoram and Emily. Final thoughts. By appointing an accountability partner, you exponentially increase the probability of succeeding in your trust-building journey. It's no longer just about your internal motivation. It's about showing up for someone else who's invested in your success. And when you report your progress consistently, you make trust-building part of your routine, turning it from a goal into a habit. Take the time to identify your accountability partner and set the foundations for a partnership that keeps you moving forward. Remember, no one builds trust alone. Step 7. Making the habit last. How long should you continue working on your new habit? How long should you track your efforts, log your progress, and stay in touch with your accountability partner? The answer is until it sticks. A habit is something you do so naturally and automatically that it feels harder to stop than to keep going. In the provider-customer relationship, it's not enough to make a good first impression. You need consistent, trust-building behavior over time. When you form a trust-building habit with a customer, the goal is for it to become part of how you interact with them naturally, without having to think about it. If the new habit is to respond to a customer email within 24 hours, then it becomes a habit when you do it naturally. You have all the systems in place to make sure it happens, and you don't have to check your response time frequently. Forming this habit will require time, repetition, and commitment, but the reward will be a solid foundation of trust that pays dividends long into the future. Why short-term changes don't stick? Behavioral change takes time. Just as crash diets often fail because they're unsustainable, a short burst of trust-building actions won't undo months or years of inconsistent or untrustworthy behavior. Customers, especially those who've experienced past disappointments, need to see sustained, consistent effort before they will truly trust you. Google the query, "How long does it take to form a habit?" You will get an answer that includes a study suggesting that, on average, it takes about 66 days to form a habit. You will find another study that indicates 90 days and another one that states it takes 21 days to form a habit. However, that's only if the behavior is practiced daily. When dealing with customer interactions, the frequency of your actions may vary, so it could take longer. Factors such as the difficulty of the habit, your personal tendencies, and how often you interact with the customer all play a role. So the answer to the question, "How long will it take for me to form this new habit?" is, it depends. There is no single answer. Rebuilding trust takes longer. The process will be even slower if you're trying to rebuild trust with a customer you've let down before. Customers don't just assess your actions. They observe whether they remain consistent over time. One lapse, no matter how small, could undo weeks of effort. The same principle applies if you're trying to win over a skeptical customer who hesitates to trust providers in general. In both cases, patience and persistence are crucial. How long should you work on the new habit? My general guideline is to continue practicing the new habits for at least 90 days or until you've repeated it 90 times. This is not a scientific number, and I will always revert to the rule that you really form the habit when you don't have to think about it anymore. You don't need the extrinsic motivation anymore. You don't need an accountability partner anymore, and it's easier to continue the new habit than to stop it. But for planning purposes, it's good to have a general goal. So I like to go with 90 days or 90 times. This extended period helps ensure that the habit becomes second nature to you and provides enough time for the customer to notice and feel confident in the change. That said, don't stop tracking your efforts until you're certain the habit is automatic and sustainable. And if, on the other hand, you feel that it meets all the criteria of becoming a habit before 90 days or 90 times, you can stop using the other support mechanisms. Here are a few tips to help you succeed during this period. Focus on repetition, not just time. Habits aren't just about how long you have been doing something, but how often. If your new habit is something you only practice once a week, 90 days might not be enough. Adjust your timeline to fit the frequency of your interactions with the customer. Tell the customer about your effort. Let the customer know that you're working on improving your relationship with them. This openness helps in 3 ways. It reduces suspicion. A sudden behavior change might otherwise seem disingenuous. It gives you credit for your effort. The customer will see that you value their trust and are willing to work on it. It creates accountability. Knowing the customer is aware of your effort will motivate you to stay consistent. Don't obsess over the outcome. Your goal is to build trust, but focusing too much on whether the customer trusts you can backfire. Trust is continuous, not binary. Instead of fixating on the end result, focus on executing your plan and forming the habit. The results will come naturally if you're consistent. Check yourself periodically. While you couldn't obsess over the outcome, it's worth checking it periodically to ensure you're still on the right track. Ask yourself, am I still practicing the habit correctly? Does this habit still seem to have the right way to build trust with the customer? Don't let one missed opportunity derail you. If you miss practicing the habit once, don't give up. One mistake doesn't erase all your progress, unless it's a major breach of trust. Get back on track as quickly as possible and keep going. Celebrate progress. Once you've formed the habit and begun to see results, take a moment to acknowledge your effort. Building trust is hard work. You deserve to celebrate your success before moving on to your next goal. What happens after the habit forms? Once the habit becomes automatic, you can let go of the tools that help you form it, such as logging, the extrinsic motivator, or relying on an accountability partner. The habit should now be a natural part of your interactions with the customer. At this point, you have 3 options for what to do next. Deepen the relationship with the same customer, continue building trust by addressing other bad behaviors or working on being trusted in new ways, expand the scope, build trust with the same customer in a different context. For example, being trusted with larger responsibilities or additional aspects of their business. Move to another relationship. Apply what you've learned to build trust with a new customer or repair another relationship. Remember this, the goal isn't just to be more trusted by one customer in one relationship. It's to develop the skill of being trustworthy. This skill is invaluable and will serve you in every interaction, professional and personal. Final thoughts. As Henry David Thoreau said, what you get by achieving your goals is not as important as what you become by achieving your goals. By working through this process, you're not only building trust with the customer, you've also become a more trustworthy provider. That's a success worth celebrating. Now, it's time to take what you've learned and build even more trust in your relationships with your customers. Well done! And this is the end of this episode and the end of Chapter 18. In this episode, we wrapped up the trust habits process and we covered the final 3 steps to help you turn thoughtful intentions into consistent and trust-building behavior. Those are step 5, make it stick, leverage tools like habit stacking and environmental design to reduce friction and reinforce the new behavior. Step 6, accountability partner, engage someone who will help you stay on track and hold you to your word. Step 7, repeat until the habit is formed. Trust isn't built overnight, it's the result of consistent, repeated behavior that becomes second nature over time. This episode is also the end of the core content of the Trust Premium book. In the next episode, I'll read the epilogue and acknowledgement and reflect on what this journey meant as we close the book. And I would leave you with a quote from Henry David Thoreau. What you get by achieving your goals is not as important as what you become by achieving your goals. And I will add that trust is not just what you earn from others, it's who you become in the process of earning it. Also, a reminder that the Trust Show now releases every other Tuesday at 6 a.m. because I have launched another podcast that's called Is It Really a Great Idea? Based on my latest book and workbook. I mentioned more about that in the previous episode. I hope this made you think a little differently about trust and Trust Premium. May trust be with you. This was The Trust Show. What would you like to know about trust and trustworthiness? Let me know and I'll answer it in a future episode. I would love to hear from you. Email me at yoram@thetrustshow.com. If you like this episode, subscribe to the show so you will automatically get notified when I release a new episode. Rate it. Write a review for this podcast because those ratings help not only you, but also others looking for podcasts just like this. If you're looking for more resources to learn about how to build trust, be trusted, or know who to trust, look up my workshops, online courses, books, or go to my website, trusthabits.com. And remember that the answer to these 2 questions will have the biggest impact on your personal and professional success or failure. Can I trust you? And can you trust me? Thank you for listening or watching The Trust Show.